All right, let's get right into it. There is a $10 trillion time bomb ticking away, right under the global economy. And the craziest part? One person is already spending tens of billions of dollars to build a bomb shelter. And when you see that, you know something big is on the horizon.
So let's talk about that number for a second. $10 trillion. That's the estimated damage to the global economy in just the first year if one single choke point in our supply chain breaks. Just to give you some perspective, that is a bigger economic shock than the 2008 financial crisis and the COVID pandemic combined.
So what on earth could cause that much damage? What single point of failure is so important that if it goes down, it could literally bring the world's economy to a screeching halt? Well, the answer is both shockingly simple and incredibly complicated.
It all boils down to one tiny island and one single company. We are talking about Taiwan and the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. You probably know them as TSMC. They are, and I'm not exaggerating, the engine room for the entire modern world. And this right here, this just shows you how wild the situation is. TSMC makes 90%, 90, of the world's most advanced semiconductors. These are the chips that power every single major AI system on the planet. This isn't just a big market share, it's a near total monopoly on the very building blocks of our future.
So who needs these chips? Well, who doesn't? Apple, Nvidia, AMD, Qualcomm, Tesla, you name a major tech company, they are completely reliant on TSMC. The phone in your pocket, the car you drive, the data centers that run our lives, this whole AI revolution, all of it, every last bit, traces back to this one company on this one island.
You know, you hear people say that chips are the new oil, but honestly, they're way more important than oil. Oil, sure, it powers our cars and heats our homes, but chips? Chips power everything. They run our phones, our computers, our AI models, and even the critical defense systems that keep countries safe. And when one place controls 90% of all of it, well, you've got a massive vulnerability. So you have to ask, where does the biggest threat to this choke point come from? Well, it's geopolitical. China views Taiwan as a part of its territory, but the strategic game here goes way deeper than just historical claims. And this is where a deadline comes into play. It's something called the Davidson window. That name comes from a top U.S. admiral who testified that China's leader Xi Jinping has ordered his military to be fully capable of invading Taiwan by the year 2027. That's not very far away, and it's creating a massive sense of urgency. So why the pressure? What's the rush? Well, China has a huge goal to dominate the global AI economy. But they have an even bigger problem. They can't make the most advanced chips themselves. The super specialized machines you need to make them come from one company in the Netherlands, and the US has effectively blocked China from buying them. So if you can't build the most important resource of the 21st century, but it's being made on an island just 100 miles away, you can kind of see the strategic thinking there. Now, this might just sound like geopolitical chess, but prediction markets, where people are betting real money, are pricing in about a 15% chance of a military conflict by the end of next year. 15% might not sound huge, but for a $10 trillion event, that is an absolutely insane level of risk. Okay, so that's the problem. It is massive and, frankly, pretty terrifying. But like I said at the start, someone is already building an insurance policy against this exact scenario. And really, it should come as no surprise that it's Elon Musk. Musk's strategy here is classic Musk. It's the same playbook he's used over and over when he hits a bottleneck. You vertically integrate. It means you control every single part of the process. If you can't trust the supply chain, you become the supply chain.
And this is a perfect example of that strategy in action. The project is called Terafab, and it's exactly what it sounds like, Tesla's very own in-house chip factory. The whole point is to make their own advanced 2-nanometer chips right here on U.S. soil, basically creating their own escape hatch from this Taiwan choke point. And the scale of this thing is it's staggering. Terafab is aiming for technology that's even more advanced than what TSMC is mass-producing right now. But just look at the output numbers. They plan to scale up to 1 million wafer starts per month. That would be almost 70% of TSMC's entire global production. From one project. It's an unbelievably ambitious move. Now, Musk isn't just doing this in a bubble. This project is part of a much bigger trend that's picking up speed all over the world, the race for what's being called sovereign AI. This is a huge shift in thinking.
Countries and companies are now realizing that AI infrastructure, the chips, the data centers, the power, is a national security asset. It's something so vital it has to be protected and controlled at home, just like your power grid or your water supply.
And this slide really breaks down the different game plans. You've got huge government programs like the CHIPS Acts in the US and EU, throwing billions of dollars at companies like TSMC to build factories on their soil. And you've got tech giants like Google and Meta designing their own amazing custom chips for their AI. But here's the key difference. For the most part, they still have to send those designs to TSMC in Taiwan to actually get them made. Tesla, with Terafab, is doing it all, from scratch, at home. It's a whole other level of security.
So, what's the right way to think about a massive move like this? Well, it's not about trying to predict the future. It's about understanding risk and playing the odds. It's what's known as an asymmetric bet.
And this chart illustrates it perfectly. Let's look at the two possibilities. Scenario 1. Taiwan is totally fine. No disruption. What's the downside for Tesla? Well, they now own a factory that makes hyper-efficient, custom-built chips that are perfectly tuned for their cars and robots. That's a huge competitive advantage. So, not much of a downside, right? But now look at the upside. If they're right and the choke point gets disrupted, they have a secure supply of the most valuable resource on the planet while all of their competitors are completely paralyzed.
Ultimately, the logic is really simple. Think about it this way. Musk isn't necessarily saying a crisis is 100% going to happen. He's saying the chance is high enough and the consequences are so devastating that spending billions on an insurance policy is the only rational move you can make. The cost of being wrong is just too catastrophic to even consider.
So let's just tie this all together. First, we've seen that the entire global tech world is balanced on this single point of failure in Taiwan. Second, that critical point is under very real geopolitical threat. Third, this has kicked off a new global race for sovereign AI as everyone scrambles to build their own resilient infrastructure. And finally, this whole story is really a masterclass in how to think about and manage huge, catastrophic risks.
Which really just leaves us with one final thought. This way of thinking, of finding those single points of failure and protecting yourself from the worst-case scenario, it doesn't just apply to chips and geopolitics, it applies to everything. So, in a world that seems more and more uncertain every day, it's worth asking yourself, what's your insurance policy?